Welcome to Crisis in Perception, where we examine the systems shaping our world, one book at a time. Today, we're tackling a pretty big question. Is the news we consume a clear window onto the world, or is it more like a carefully constructed picture?
We're diving into the landmark book, Manufacturing Consent. And its core idea is pretty radical, that the news isn't just reported, it's systematically filtered. The information we get is shaped long before it ever reaches our screens.
Think about it. Why does a tragedy in one country lead the news for weeks, while a different, maybe even bigger one, gets barely a mention? The book tackles this question head-on, and the answer, according to the authors, lies in a hidden framework that shapes our view of the world.
And that framework is what they call the propaganda model. It's a way of looking not at individual journalists and their choices, but at the entire system they have to work within.
Now, it's really important to get this straight. This isn't some conspiracy theory about reporters getting secret marching orders. The model argues that news is shaped by the very structure of the media industry itself. It's like raw information has to pass through a series of filters that just naturally weed out ideas that challenge powerful interests.
So how does this happen without direct orders? Well, this quote gets right to the heart of it. The model suggests that bias comes from hiring the right people, from unspoken rules, and from journalists just adapting to the system to keep their jobs. Censorship, in other words, becomes self-censorship.
Okay, so let's break down this filtering system. How does it actually work? The book lays out 5 distinct layers that raw information has to get through before it can ever be considered news.
So, here they are, the 5 big filters: ownership, advertising, sourcing, flack, and a dominant ideology. Together, these create a really powerful system that shapes what we read and watch. Let's take a quick look at each one.
First up, ownership. The book points out that media has become incredibly concentrated. Look at that number. The firms controlling the media shrank by about half in just a few years. These are massive, profit-seeking corporations, and their bottom line is, well, the bottom line.
And that leads right into the second filter, advertising. Now, this one's a real game changer. For most mass media, you aren't the customer. You're the product being sold to the real customers, the advertisers. This means the news has to create a buying mood, and more importantly, avoid stories that might upset the companies paying the bills.
Filter number 3 is sourcing. Think about it. Newsrooms need a steady, reliable stream of information every single day. And who can provide that? Governments and big corporations. They have entire PR departments ready to go. This gives these powerful institutions a huge advantage in setting the news agenda.
Then we have the 4th filter, which the book calls flack. And it's pretty much what it sounds like: organized negative feedback. We're talking letters, lawsuits, advertiser boycotts, all designed to discipline any outlet that steps out of line. It's a powerful way to discourage reporting that challenges the status quo.
And the final filter is a dominant ideology. Back when the book was written, the big one was anti-communism. This kind of overarching belief system acts like a control mechanism, framing the world in a simple us-versus-them narrative that makes it really easy to rally people behind a cause and sideline any dissenting voices.
Okay, so that's the theory. But what does this all look like in the real world? The book gives a really stark example through what it calls the difference between worthy and unworthy victims.
This is just fascinating. The book compares the language used for an official enemy, like Pol Pot, versus a U.S. client, like Suharto. The victims of our enemies are worthy. They get our sympathy, and the coverage is filled with visceral, emotional words. But when the victims are connected to our allies, they become unworthy. The language gets vague, passive, the story just fades into the background.
And this table really drives the point home. Look at this. When the Soviets shot down an airliner, it was useful for demonizing an enemy, so it became a massive story. But when an ally did something similar, the book points out that the conversation was shut down because it served no useful purpose. It's all about how useful the story is for supporting state policy.
So, when you put this all together, what does it mean? What new lens does this model give us for looking at the media?
Well, it pretty much reframes the whole picture. Instead of seeing the media as a simple window onto the world, the propaganda model suggests it's more like a system that actively constructs a version of reality that supports the status quo. And it does this not through force, but through the much quieter pressures of the market and our own self-censorship.
Which leaves us with a really critical question. If the news we get is filtered, what are we not seeing? What stories are being left untold? For the full, long-form deep dive into this book and its ideas, follow the link in the description.
If you enjoy these explainers, please subscribe and comment with books or topics you'd like us to explore next.